Hey guys, this is EDL 851 Module 12 by Chris Lawton. Section 1, the summary of the case. The principal is finishing up his teacher evaluations and he's pleased with the ability and development of all of his teachers except for Mrs. Stevens. The principal has visited her classroom several times and has observed Ms. Stevens' lack of classroom management, student involvement/engagement, and overall her students show little respect for her. It's evident that Ms. Stevens is intelligent and has an excellent background in her subject area, but she lacks the ability to motivate her students. During the principal's post-visitation conference, Ms. Stevens was irritable and hostile to suggestions. She reacted very defensively. The principal decided to visit her classroom again before submitting her evaluation to his superiors. There was little noticeable improvement, and Ms. Stevens was encountering her usual problems. The principal decided he would recommend not to renew her contract for the following year. The principal and Ms. Stevens had a meeting to review her evaluation and discuss that her contract would not be renewed for the following year. At the meeting, Ms. Stevens was irate with the evaluation and the principal's recommendation, as she claimed that the evaluation was inaccurate and unfair since she has received no real supervision. Ms. Stevens threatens that she will fight the evaluation and that she will take the issue to court. Section 2, legal and ethical issues. Ms. Stevens is intelligent and has an excellent background in her subject matter, but she has no classroom management. She lacks the ability to motivate and engage her students, and she is not open to suggestions for improvement from the principal. If the principal gives her a favorable evaluation/recommendation, then it would grant tenure to Ms. Stevens, and he would be stuck with her for the foreseeable future. After the principal notifies Ms. Stevens that he has recommended that her contract is not renewed for the following year, Ms. Stevens claims that the principal has not provided any real supervision, nor has he offered any practical ideas on how to improve. She threatens that she will take the issue to court. Section 3, synthesizing the information. The principal realizes that Ms. Stevens is an inadequate teacher, and unless he gives her a poor evaluation, then she will be granted tenure, and he will be stuck with her for the foreseeable future. However, Ms. Stevens is claiming that the principal has not properly fulfilled his role of supervising and coaching her to become a more effective teacher. Section 4, synthesize the facts. The people, the principal, school board, and the teacher, Ms. Stevens. The place, school. Though it's not listed, I'm assuming it's probably a public school. Program, the principal is following the district's process of conducting and submitting teacher evaluations. Based on the evaluation and the principal's recommendation, it will determine whether or not a teacher's contract is renewed for the following year. Section 5, review and prioritize the information. The principal has every right to recommend that Ms. Stevens' contract is not renewed for the following year based on the principal's classroom observations that have proven that Ms. Stevens is an inadequate teacher who is not open to take suggestions on ways that she can become a more effective teacher. The principal must be able to prove through documentation that he has taken the proper steps to supervise and coach the teacher. Ms. Stevens may have a legitimate case if she can prove that the principal and her supervisor have not provided any practical ideas on how she can become a more effective teacher, or if they have not fulfilled their role of providing real supervision and support. Section 6, identify the options and possible consequences. Option A, no action. The principal's recommendation that Ms. Stevens' contract is not renewed for the following year could result in Ms. Stevens filing a lawsuit based on her perception that she was not provided with any real supervision from the school district. Option B, most comprehensive. If the principal truly believes that Ms. Stevens is an inadequate teacher who does not possess the ability to change and improve in the future, then he must not recommend the renewal of her contract, as this is in his best interest as the school's principal, but most importantly, it's in the best interest of the students. The principal must be able to prove through documentation that he has fulfilled his obligations as a principal and evaluator based on the district's policies. Option C, possible alternative. The principal could ask the superintendent and the school board for an extension on submitting Ms. Stevens' evaluation/recommendation. This would enable the principal to give Ms. Stevens one last chance to show that she has made improvements. Prior to the principal's final classroom observation, he could set up a meeting that clearly outlines the areas in which Ms. Stevens must improve and then provide her with the appropriate professional learning that will address her areas of weakness. This may include literature on the topic, collegial visits, or coaching/mentoring from a veteran teacher that Ms. Stevens trusts. Section 7. Evaluate the options. Option A, no action. The pros: the principal removes a teacher from his staff that is not effective. The principal has the ability to hire someone new that he feels will have a greater influence on student achievement. Sends a message to the entire school staff that ineffective teachers will not be granted tenure. The cons: possible lawsuit from Ms. Stevens. Option B, the pros: the principal removes a teacher from his staff that is not effective based on his documentation that he has fulfilled his role as supervisor and evaluator of Ms. Stevens. The principal has the ability to hire someone new that he feels will have a greater influence on student achievement. It sends a message to the entire school staff that ineffective teachers will not be granted tenure. The cons: if the principal does not have documentation that he has fulfilled his role as a teacher, supervisor, and evaluator, then he could be in trouble. Possible lawsuit from Ms. Stevens. Option C, pros: the principal provides Ms. Stevens with one last chance to show that she has made improvement. The principal has created an actionable plan for Ms. Stevens to follow in order to address her weaknesses. Proves to the school staff that he wants his teachers to improve and he cares about their growth and development. He's not cutthroat. Cons: the request for an extension could be perceived as the principal's inability to properly evaluate and assess his teachers based on the current evaluation system. Section 8, best option. Principal's best option is option B, which is to recommend that Ms. Stevens' contract is not renewed for the following year, and the principal would provide the superintendent and the school board with the appropriate documentation to prove that Ms. Stevens was provided with ample coaching, mentoring, and professional learning during her tenure at the school. Yet in spite of all the supervision and professional learning that she was provided, she never heeded any of the actionable feedback, nor did she make any strides at improving her effectiveness. Section 8, best option. This option is better than option A because if the principal does not have the proper documentation to prove that real supervision and guidance was provided to Ms. Stevens, then she would have a legitimate case for a lawsuit, and the principal would be in trouble with the superintendent and the school board because he didn't follow the protocol and process of the district's evaluation and supervision system. Also, this option is better than option C because at this point the principal knows that Ms. Stevens is an inadequate and ineffective teacher who is not open to feedback, so rather than provide her with another chance to show improvement, which might force his hand to write a favorable recommendation, which would grant her tenure, he's better off to let her go now and find a new teacher who is more effective and open to constructive criticism and feedback. This option will promote school improvement and student success in the future. Section 9, implementing the decision. The principal submits the evaluation and recommendation that Ms. Stevens' contract is not renewed for the following year to the superintendent and school board. Along with this submission, the principal will develop and submit documentation that clearly outlines the steps the principal took in order to adhere to the district's guidelines for supervision and evaluation, the principal's classroom observation notes and all evaluations of the teacher to prove that there has been a lack of growth and development during her time at the school, the principal's actionable feedback that he provided to Ms. Stevens that includes opportunities for professional learning that would address her weaknesses as outlined in the evaluation. Results of the student perception survey that supports a student's lack of respect, inattentiveness, and disengagement as outlined in the principal's evaluations. And finally, the objective measures of student growth to prove that student achievement is not taking place in her classroom. Ms. Stevens will most likely involve the union and may even threaten to file a lawsuit claiming that she was not provided the guidance and supervision she needed in order to make improvements. However, given the documentation and evidence that the principal has provided, it will be very difficult for Ms. Stevens to refute the facts. The principal can now post a teaching position and interview potential candidates who possess the qualities of classroom management, the ability to motivate and inspire students, and someone who is open to feedback and constructive criticism. If for some reason the union, superintendent, and/or the school board feels that Ms. Stevens should be observed and evaluated by a separate school administrator to determine whether or not her contract will be renewed and tenure granted, the principal should rest assured that he has done his due diligence, and even a new evaluation from a separate administrator will see and support the same issues as outlined in the principal's documentation. Section 10, questions to consider. What sources of data can be used to provide feedback to teachers so they can improve student learning? What are some sources of teacher evaluation data and information? Classroom observations, student perception surveys, and objective measures of student growth can be used to determine that. Next, what role do formal and informal assessments play in evaluating the effectiveness of a school's instruction and programs? These assessments can be used to gauge student achievement in a classroom, which can be directly correlated to a teacher's effectiveness. Next, what are the strengths and weaknesses of the particular teacher evaluation form used in this case? The pros: it evaluates a teacher's relationship with all school stakeholders. It's a 3-level rating system, which rates below average, average, and above average. The cons: there's no student perception survey. It does not take into account formal and informal assessments of students in order to evaluate student growth. There's no professional development tied to the evaluation, and there's minimal written feedback. What is the school board and administrative policy in your district in regard to classroom visitation and to teacher supervision and evaluation? In regards to classroom visitation, informal observations and drop-ins can happen at any time and they can be unannounced. However, the supervisor must provide written feedback within 24 hours. Formal observations are scheduled 1 to 2 weeks in advance. Teacher supervision and evaluation. Teachers who are not tenured have 3 formal observations per year that include a pre-observation and post-observation meeting. Tenured teachers are only required to have 1 formal observation. If a supervisor/evaluator is not going to renew a teacher's contract, there must be sufficient evidence to prove that the supervisor/evaluator took all the appropriate steps as outlined by the district's policy to support the teacher and provide opportunities for professional learning. Lastly, determine whether there are state laws or court decisions that would have a bearing on whether the teacher in this case could be legally dismissed in your district. Based on Connecticut law, if a teacher is not tenured and the district can prove that the evaluations have shown a lack of professional growth and development, and if the teacher has been provided with actionable feedback and professional learning opportunities, then the teacher and union has no recourse to the dismissal. Thank you guys for checking out my presentation. Have a great day.